All right. And we're back with another episode of the Fuel or Crutch podcast. I'm going to give it a minute for a couple of folks to jump on. I'm also going to stream this live from uh, Instagram as well. I hope everybody has had a great weekend. If not, the day is not over. You still can. So, with that being said, I'm going to drop the intro and let's get the show going. All right, we're back with another episode of Fuel or Crutch podcast. I'm your co-host Jamal Eubanks, not co-host, host. I do have two very special guests today. I will be bringing them on shortly, but I do want to do what I said that I was going to do, which is shout out some Black businesses as we are taking things to another level with this Black History Month. So, designs, custom shirts, makes transfers, tumblers, mugs, you name it. Shout out to Crystal Seymour Austin. Also, Terrell Outlay. If you've got some real estate stuff you got going on, please contact Terrell. He's out in Sun Prairie. Also, Taryn Elizabeth is out there as well. She's doing phenomenal. So is Terrell. We've got Keena Atkinson with Rougie Wellness. She's also doing a couples yoga February 17th. So check her out. Go look it up and see if you guys can't take your relationship to another level. And also shout out to Bethany, Stephanie, Queen P's Throne, your earring lady. She's viral. She's super famous and important. She definitely go get those Black History earrings with the chair. Shout out to her. And also, last but not least, Alana Lee, Wild Wind Organics, handcrafted skincare with all natural, unrefined ingredients and no preservative. She's got a Valentine's Day sale going on now through the 14th and highlighting all types of love and different Black entrepreneurs each week for Black History Month. This week, she's shouting out Anthony Overton. So, please make sure y'all go support your Black businesses. Also, mine as well. I never really boast or brag about myself at all on here, and I haven't, but this is the first time I'm going to. My online store dropped. It was a collaboration with me and my daughter, and she's putting her brand together, and she wants to be a support and a eventual voice for mental health awareness, as she created a brand that's I matter, you matter, we matter, with an infinity sign, because she says it starts with self, and you've got to be able to understand and realize that you matter personally, you're enough, and if you matter, then the next person matters, and collectively you guys matter all together, and forever, and that's what the encompasses with the infinity sign. I will be dropping that link in the chat later and then posting it on Facebook. So I did want to, like I said, bring in two very special guests, two people I've known for a while, one longer than the other, but that's okay. So please welcome Dr. Larry Love and Dr. Angie Hicks. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great.
Doing well.
Awesome. I super appreciate y'all coming on the show. And I think it's going to be a great show. I think a lot of people know of y'all, may or may not know your story, history, background, or what you're currently doing, because you guys are all over the community. So why don't y'all give yourselves an introduction and where you're from?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Angie Hicks. I am the Associate Superintendent of Middle Schools in the Madison Metropolitan School District. I am in my 33rd year within the district. My trajectory began as a clerical. I became a custodian. I was an instructional coach. I was a Title V Indian Education tutor coordinator. I have been an assistant principal, a classroom teacher at the elementary and middle school level. And I am born and raised from Madison, Wisconsin. And my roots are in my community and in my village.
So my tenure has not been as long, probably about a third of Dr. Hicks here. But I would say there's been many transitions in my career, if you will. And so probably about year 10 or 11 now. Actually started a little later than most traditional educators in the sense that I did not intend to be a teacher, or at least I didn't think so. But calling took over and I found myself inside the classroom. And so I currently am the head principal at Badger Ridge Middle School in the Verona Area School District. Over the course of my career, I have been an assistant principal, a PBIS coach, instructional coach, particularly for literacy, an avid elective teacher, and special education teacher, with the majority of my time being at Wright Middle School, actually under the direction of Dr. Angie Hicks. And yeah, assistant principal and some other things in there that I'm probably missing, but definitely exciting 10, 11 years in the field.
All right, appreciate the introductions. Where are y'all originally from?
As I stated in my intro, I'm originally from Madison, Wisconsin.
I think there's a little more specifics you can add to that because there's a different level of pride from where you come from.
Oh, you mean the south side of Madison, Wisconsin? Yeah, south side. I'm from the south side of Madison. Was there until I left the city and then came back, and now I'm on the north side.
Right.
Yeah, I'm actually originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I've been in Madison pretty much since undergrad. So right after high school, I came to the university to pursue college education and kind of stuck around.
So I got an icebreaker question for you, for you, both of you. What was your favorite subject growing up?
I just love school. Just want to put that out there. But I really loved math. Actually, I love all of it. I didn't have a favorite. I loved math. I loved literacy, loved reading. I loved social studies. I wasn't a science little guru in there, but I would just coin literacy and math.
Yeah, similarly, I love school too, and I think that might speak to why we do the work that we do now. But if I had to choose a favorite subject, I would definitely probably say, well, it wouldn't just be one, but literacy and math. Math would probably be the top two. Actually is one that later grew on me, and I think that had a lot to do with the fact that I had my first Black teacher in 8th grade, and she was a science teacher, and it just opened up a different appreciation for science for me. And so it was actually at that point that I kind of decided, like when I moved into high school, I selected multiple science courses in my freshman year and took advanced science courses and things of that nature. So kind of a little bit of everything, but literacy and math will probably be the top two for sure.
Shout out to y'all for just loving school. I do feel like some of that love for school has kind of dwindled in a lot of people in general. I could say that my favorite subjects were history and math. I really did not like science at all. But I have had some experiences like Badger Rock when I worked there. The way that they did science was so neat and cool, with super hands-on, and I started to enjoy it. And I was like, if I had have learned it this way, I might have had a different love for it or liking for it at that point. So like, what was y'all dream as a kid? Like, what did you aspire to be when you were younger? What was that dream?
It's funny you talk about dream, right? Because right now I truly believe, like, we as teachers and leaders in this space, that we are in education, we are scholars, dream keepers, because we are tasked, and not even just tasked, it's our responsibility to, hold on to young people's dreams until they're able to hold on to them for themselves. So I don't know if it was a dream, but I just know that as I was growing up, we played hard, we played a lot, but I played church in school a lot. Church and school, because those were the things we did and those were the places we were. When I was in high school, I had decided I wanted to be an accountant. Because I loved math and I loved numbers, and I had jobs where I worked, in business, keeping books, doing those kinds of things when I was in high school. And so that's what I was initially going to college to do.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think for me, I want to be clear that, like, the question is, what was my dream career? I think if you ask me what was my dream career versus what I was called to do, you would get two different answers. So just want to put that out there.
Give
All right,
both.
so what I thought was my dream career was to be a medical doctor. And kind of that started with that story I was talking about when I had my first Black teacher for 8th grade science. And it just, again, opened up so many possibilities and desires for me as I thought about science careers. But I think a big part of that was also, like, the pressures that get put onto you by your community, family, whomever, of, like, what are considered prestigious careers. And so I think I dreamed to be a medical doctor more so to make those around me proud, or to satisfy something that wasn't really of my own. Now, in terms of what I feel like I was called to do, similarly to Dr. Hicks, I have two younger siblings, and school was something that they were often forced or encouraged to play. And so I was the one who would make them, like, get their textbooks and teaching them all the things so that they will always be ahead of their classes. And so then, as I sat in university classes and whatnot, I realized that the passion wasn't in those science classes. Like, I enjoy them, but it didn't speak to me. It didn't excite me in the ways that being in education classes excited me and motivated me and really, like, brought me to life. So dream career, very different than what I was called to do, and I very much believe that my calling was to be an educator, and really making an impact on the lives of young people who sometimes don't necessarily, kind of similar to what you were saying, Dr. Hicks, like, we have to carry their dreams for them a little bit or hold on to them for them. And so I find that work really exciting, fulfilling, in ways that I don't know that being a medical doctor would have fulfilled me.
All right, I appreciate those answers, because I feel like I was the weird kid that wanted to be a teacher. I knew I wanted to be a teacher since the 5th grade, but kind of similar to you, Larry. It was when I had a Black teacher. The way the teacher kind of just communicated with me, talking to me like a actual human and not some little kid, which I was, but it was just a different level of conversation, and also the expectation that he had for me, because I used to get in trouble a little bit. And so like I remember just being in his class and him pulling me in the hall and just having conversations with me on what was expected of me from him, and also what society was expecting of me too. And so like those kind of like stuck with me and were long lasting. And I realized that I wanted to be kind of like that change, that voice of reason for somebody else who may go through the exact same experiences that I did or have gone through. So like my follow-up question would be, did you guys have some influential people in your life growing up that kind of helped shape you or guide you? And if so, who?
So I'm just going to start off by saying I'm just going to give honors to my mother, right, who was single, taking care of 4 children, paving the way, no matter what was going on. We had what we needed. She demonstrated hard work, tenacity, and putting, her children at the forefront. And she was in education, right? She was an SEA, and when I would see her, she would come home. She was making lessons for kids. She was getting stuff ready for them, and just really like, again, that was her passion, right? And so she paved the way for me to who I am as a woman today, who I am as a leader today, and who I aspire to be too. I would say though, in my community, I had a village. So it wasn't like it was just one person. My village had a responsibility over all of us. And so I was held accountable for who I was, how I showed up, what I was and would and could do from them. In my educational career, I would say it would be Christine Hodge. I call her mother. She's the one who really saw in me what I wasn't even thinking about in myself in terms of in the capacity of education and where I could go or what I could do. Were it not for her, right now, I would probably still be in the classroom. She's the one who said, knocked on my shoulder, come over here, you can do this. And while I was trepidatious in my move, I stepped out on faith, and then the rest is history. And because of her love and support and encouragement and continual encouragement and feedback in the field, she has really influenced that for me. I would also say, I come from a village, and yeah, Madison is way more diverse now than it was when I grew up. But the fortunate thing for me is when I went to school, I went to Aldo Littlepage Elementary School, where Larry was the principal. And my teachers saw me, actually. I was speaking to a couple of them yesterday. Mr. Lilliquist, one of my 3rd grade teachers, who I also was my cooperating teacher when I was getting my license. But Mother Bernard was my first African-American teacher. She was my math and my literacy teacher in 4th grade. And I'm still connected to her today. And all of my teachers, Miss Wick, they saw me. I learned about our history in school as a student. When people from even some other cities larger than Madison, like, they didn't learn those things. So I think I just happened to be blessed to come up during a time when people were doing the right thing, because that was the right thing to do for humans. And there were so many activist kinds of things going on in the world. We had the civil rights, we had the women's libs, we had all of that going on at the same time. And my community, my teachers, they saw me, they saw us, and they pushed us and expected from us. Yep, I was sassy, still am, but I mean, it helped me to grow and be better and see different. So yeah, not one person. Again, it was my village. You know.
Nope, that's
Yeah,
important.
I think Dr. Hicks touches on something super important, the idea of the village. And I'm going to answer the question, but I do feel like currently, or yeah, currently in education, I feel like that notion of the village has kind of dwindled, which is quite unfortunate. And so the ways in which I can recall my teachers, and in particular my African American teachers, holding on to me, I feel like in schools today, um, there's kind of this disconnect between the notion of the village and this recognition that, like, you might not be my child, but I care for you in the same ways that I would my own child, because you're a little black boy or a little black girl, or you're a little student who needs, and I have a responsibility to ensure that, again, as Dr. Hicks said earlier, like, we're holding on to your dreams. And so I think one of the biggest things that I would love to see shift in schools is this reigniting of the village. Like, it's so necessary for us to do our work, and to ensure that families understand the work that we're doing, and that partnership is critical. But to answer the question of influential people, certainly, I can go to my mother and talk about all the things that she's done, and ensuring that my needs were met, and encouraging, and all of those things. But sometimes I think when we ask the question of influential people, we think of people who came before us, and not recognize that sometimes the people who influence us can also be those who are behind us, if you will. And so I often think of my younger brothers as some of my biggest influences, in the sense of, like, when I look back and I saw them, it really encouraged me to make sure that I was doing the things, wanting to be a positive role model for them. So things like making sure that, they saw me doing homework, they saw me getting good grades, they saw me applying to colleges and going to college, and this notion of being a lifelong learner. I really attribute that to wanting to make them proud, and again, be a good role model for them. In terms of my career, I have had many role models. Dr. Hicks is one of them. She's the one who kind of first tapped me on the shoulder to come out of the classroom, and played a big part in really us making history, if you will. She mentioned Aldo Leopold Elementary School. If memory serves me, I believe I was the first Black principal of Aldo Leopold Elementary School. And I credit a lot of that to Dr. Hicks' belief in me being ready to come out of the classroom. And then also other Black leaders in the community. I think about Rainey Briggs. I think about Dr. Tremaine Clarity. And again, also being the first Black principal at Badger Ridge Middle School in Verona. It's because of these Black leaders see something or saw something in me. And I definitely give respect and great honor to them for being so influential in my career.
That village thing is so real, and that's why I always speak about the importance of the South Side, because it's always been that strong village and the families that have always stayed there. And for me, it was the Greers, the Kilgores, the Jacksons, and somebody that just crossed my mind as you guys were talking, that he always saw me when I was doing something I ain't have no business doing, and so I wanted to make sure that I showed him love too. Is Mr. Billings, Gloria Lasson Billings, who's of course we know is another heavy hitter in the world of education, but I had no clue that was her husband until maybe 5 years ago. But he would always talk to me, pull me to the side, have conversations with me in the community. And he would always ask my mom about me when I was gone and away for school. So, like, I super appreciate all the people that were still checking on me when I was no longer around, because not everybody got the opportunity to leave and go away to school. And doing that was interesting and unique in itself. And so, like, jumping off of that, I want to know, when did you guys realize you were smart? I asked that because I was a part of a summit 2 weeks ago, and that was a conversation that was kind of floating around. And so I would love to hear when you guys realized that you were smart, and also when you found your voice.
I think we probably gonna have a similar answer to when we realized we were smart. I would say I always knew I was smart, or at least I believed I was smart. So yeah, and yeah, I mean, I can't remember a distinct moment of like me feeling like I wasn't smart or smart enough. When I feel like I found my voice, probably middle school. Again, those first experiences with some of my black teachers and teachers of color in general in middle school who really valued what we wanted to learn and how we wanted to learn it. Certainly within some parameters, um, but yeah, they were. It wasn't this notion of like I say it so you do it. It was now we definitely did what they said do because that was just the time, but they definitely invited us in some very uh, carefully constructed ways to leverage our voice, and so I thought that voice piece probably really showed up in my middle school years.
Yeah, just like Larry. Actually, I've always thought I was smart. I believed I was smart. I have a time that I recall vividly when I was 4 years old in Montessori, and I wrote the F word on the board and said, "What does that spell?" I knew what it spelled, and and I got a whooping for it because my mother was actually at the time the cook in our school that I attended, and my teacher was one of her best good friends, and so I got in trouble for that. But as a 4 year old, I'm writing and spelling and doing all of the things. Really, I mean, and I think God just put that in me, like that's who I am, like the character, my strengths and my weaknesses that I still need to continue to grow in. But yeah, I think that I've just always felt like I can just I can be who I am. My voice, I would say, believe it or not, I'm still trying to find it. Um, while I show up in spaces very confident and competent in many things, um, I'm in a world that tries to diminish and dampen our light, and I continue to try to push forward and leverage the voices of those whose voices aren't heard. So when I say I'm still trying to find my voice, I'm still trying to find space and opportunity to leverage the voice of others. And through that, my voice will continue to rise. Uh, yeah, I never hesitated to speak out and speak up. And I will continue to do so as long as I am called to do so through God's plan.
Yeah, I just want to say something in response to that. So I 100% agree. Like that when I talk about finding voice, it's that for me, it's the mindset of having the courage to be able to speak up for what's right and for our youth and things of that nature. But I wholeheartedly agree that in our field and in our society in general, like yeah, there are many instances in which our voices are under attack. People try to silence us in many different ways. Um, and yeah, definitely that's there. But I think for me, as I hear your question, Jamal, around like when I found my voice, I really think about it as like when did I know that I could speak up or that my voice did matter. And so it's like that. It's like both and. I know I have a voice. I know I can speak up, but I also know that there's this other unfortunate side of things that try to silence our voices and whatnot.
So I appreciate
and as you say that, Larry, I don't want to stay on this too long. It goes back to again to childhood, right? For me, because many people, I'm still like thinking about this. You know, they called me a bully as I was growing up, and I had to like come back and say, wait. I one didn't take a lot of stuff from people and stood up for myself. Two, I also stood up for other people. So if me being assertive and setting boundaries and saying what I'm not going to do, what you not I'm going to not allow you to do, I think that it became I've always been that way, but it became clear to me probably in the 4th grade when a young girl named Jennifer Tibbetts called me the N-word. And my first response, my emotional response was to punch her in the jaw. And I didn't get suspended. I did go talk to the principal. But in that moment, I had felt, just wait, what? Like it really wasn't real. While my response might have been much to some, it was needed in that moment. And in that moment, I said to myself, no one is going to, treat me in that way. And so I would say 4th grade.
Shout out to Crystal Johnson tuning in on YouTube. She says sometimes it feels like finding your voice is double with being prepared for the consequences that may come up from speaking up. You guys got any rebuttal for that?
I think it's true. It's definitely, I would say, big facts. But I think for me, that's why I always have desired and needed to work so hard, because I know that I can't rest on not speaking up because I'm worried about getting in trouble. That doesn't serve me or my community well, and I feel like it would make me a coward. And so if I need to speak up on an issue, I think that has really been one of the things that has pushed me so hard. And I tell people all the time, like, I know I'm a very smart person. And so if in this situation, when I'm speaking up, if somebody doesn't value me speaking up for something that is right and just, then I'm not meant to be in that space anyway. I'll go find something different. That's just how I operate in whatever it is that I'm doing. And so I think Crystal is spot on, but I also would say that you can't allow that to be the reason to not speak up.
And what I would say is to Crystal or anybody else, because I am a woman of faith, to whom much is given, much is required. And so because of the walk I walk and who I believe in, at times I am, and I do have to be the sacrifice, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say what you say, to be able to put people in a space to be able to listen and hear you, right? And so for me, to not speak, to not step up for those who don't have a voice and be able to put it in the space, I wouldn't be doing what God is calling me to do. So again, based on who you are and where you are in the world, to be silent is to being complicit and complacent in what is going around you. And then you're actually saying, oh, it's okay. And so I would never say it's okay for you to harm a child. I would never say it's right for you to harm anybody, whether it's physical or verbal. And so utilizing your voice, if you need to talk to somebody to help you to find your voice through therapy, through whatever means, leverage it. Because right now, if we look at our world, we are not using our voices in ways that matter, ways that can impact change. We we are becoming complacent and accepting the few crumbs that we have gotten, and it's not getting us anywhere. And truth of the matter, I'm standing on the backs of those who came before me and those who will come after me. And I might not get there with them, but I'm going to continue to take the torch until I'm not here anymore, to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do, saying what I need to say. I know everyone is not going to like it. I know everyone is not going to agree. But if I can change one person, ideals or values or voice or whatever in a decision making place that will impact tons of people, I'm ready to risk that. So
No, I appreciate you guys chiming in on that. And I guess I asked it because I've been doing a little bit of self-reflecting. That I think some of this weekend was about that. And I thought about that same question, and I knew that I was smart very early, but then I lost it. Going to middle school, trying to fit in and figure out who I was, and like being smart wasn't necessarily the cool thing to be. And so I dumbed down my intelligence so I could fit in. Shout out to Paris Eccles, who talks about being born gifted, because me desiring to fit in set me back. And I think that from middle school, after trying to fit in and dumbing down my intelligence or smarts, it translated into high school, where I started to really believe that that was where I was at, and I was doing enough to get by. And I didn't really realize that I was smart, probably again, until I was in grad school. I was probably working on my second master's degree before I really realized that I was smart. And I want to say I probably didn't start finding my voice, which is still a work in progress, was probably until I probably was almost 30 or maybe even 30. So everybody's walking journey is different. But at the same time, it's something that we've got to do some of that soul searching internally to be able to move forward and do what we're called to do. So piggybacking off of that, but before I do that, I wanted to just take a minute for Black History Month and talk about Ruby Bridges. I just wanted to shout her out for the simple fact that Black History Month, and we're talking about education, and her being that first African American in 1960 to go into that all white elementary school, and just to think about how long ago that was not. Like, it was not long ago. That woman is still alive, and sometimes I think people forget that was not that long ago. That was people that are still alive their lifetime, to the point where that woman in particular is still alive. But moving forward, did you guys ever encounter that imposter syndrome? And I think that's where that conversation happened for me, and I started to really stop and think about the imposter syndrome and my fear of not being accepted, not being enough. I just want to know, did you guys ever encounter or feel any of that?
Yeah, I guess I can start. I think I experienced it a lot, especially being at UW Madison, like for every degree program. Yeah, it was often and it was constant. There were many moments, particularly in undergrad to begin, where there was this yearning to leave. And pursue education at a historically Black college or university. I remember going to my advisor's office one time and very candidly told her that I was applying to Prairie View, because I didn't feel like I belonged here. I didn't feel like the values for education that I had were necessarily uplifted in the classes that I was taking. And I think part of that, and maybe some of that was also because of how they talked about the classes I was taking. So again, when I came in, I was coming in thinking I was going to go into the medical profession. And there was these conversations of like, well, you probably should get a tutor for that class. And did you have this class in high school? And this is a weed out class. And so all of these like damaging narratives that were being fed into me without anyone ever asking, like, or believing, first of all, that I was capable, And as I said earlier, like I've always known I was smart. And so I knew what those classes required and I knew what I was capable of doing. Um, but I think at some point I did start to feel like I was an imposter, and I started to buy into some of the narratives that they were putting out, where I was like, well, maybe I won't take that class, or maybe this isn't the major for me. Um, and I think some of those that sense of imposter syndrome carried on into my master's program, into my PhD program, and honestly, I think it carries over into the career. You know that education is a white female dominated profession, and as a Black leader, I think there's times practically every day where I have to show people or demonstrate that I belong in those spaces and that I know the work, that I know what I'm talking about. I have people who question decisions that I make, not because it's not sound or rooted in science or fact, but because I was the one who said it. You like I've literally had other people say that, who white women who um, have said the same exact things, and it lands perfectly. But when I say it, it's is that really right? How do you know that? What is this based on? Or there's these meetings after the meeting to kind of discuss why, what I'm putting out might not be um, the right thing. But again, I think you have to know who you are, and know that you have a calling, and know that you again are capable of doing the things that you set out to do. And so, I hold on to those things. I hold on to my community, my village who exists beyond, the profession, beyond the university, to continue to support and uplift. And I don't know that imposter syndrome is going to go away, but I do know, for me, it can't be the reason for me to not do the work.
I would just say that I think that actually it's so you talk about the imposter syndrome in the organization that I have been in one capacity or another for many, 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 many years, for the greater part of my life. Um, Actually is a place that has, tried to reject me, right? And so, but I see your shirt there, Jamal. Fuel or crutch. I use that for fuel. I didn't let it be a crutch. When they told me I was turned down for the Principal Grow Your Own program 3 times, and I was like, wait, what? And finally, someone answered my like, well, what am I not doing? What am I not saying? And they said, well, we asked you what was the most important role of a principal, and I said, an instructional leader, a strong instructional leadership. Yeah, right. But you didn't say that. Well, yes, I did say that. I said that in ways probably that you didn't communicate well to you. So, or the communicate, I didn't say the technical word that you wanted me to say, but you were looking for the word and you weren't looking for like the skill or what or how, right? And so I used that. I said, wait, let me go back. Let me do this differently. Right? And so when I didn't get a job that I thought I should get, in hindsight, knowing that not in hindsight, I wasn't ready. But at the time, I thought I was more than ready, and I didn't get it. I was like, oh, I will not be denied. You won't be able to tell me that I'm not qualified again. And that's what thrust me in going back to get my doctorate, not because I wanted to be in tons of debt and all these other things, but because I had to, be an example for somebody else. And so that I could have a testimony to share with somebody else to say, if it happened to me, it might happen to you. And here's how I can help you to learn how to navigate those kinds of things. So you can go through it and not get stopped at the door. So yeah, just in life, there are so many spaces that, because I am a Black woman, and how I show up with passion, assertion, it's called aggressive, angry, right? And so I had a former superintendent tell me what people were saying about me or had said about me, and I'm like, well, I had to be reflective on that. Well, let me see. I had to come back. Yeah, I am not any of. I am passionate, and passion shows up in a lot of ways. And just because it's not a way that you prefer passion to show up, it doesn't mean it shouldn't show up. And it means it's okay. And I'm going to show up in the ways that I need to show up in order to ensure that I'm bringing Mary McLeod Bethune. I'm bringing Harriet Tubman. I'm bringing Makia. All the people in the space with me, and because it's purposeful and intentional. So yeah, just it's a struggle every day, every day, and in many spaces, to not have that imposter syndrome, because the systems that we live in and operate in were not designed for us, and we're still trying to
fit.
I don't want to even say at this point I'm at the point I'm saying they need to be torn down so they can be really truly be real built in the way that they need to be. They need to be dismantled, not just collapsed. And because right now we keep putting a Band-Aid over an open gushing wound, and we're not taking care of anything, and we're continuing to let the systems exacerbate the harm that it created on the onset. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody that's listening, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. I have no problem reading those. We've got one right now. There seems to be a general disinterest or lack of enthusiasm towards school, especially since the pandemic. What do y'all think we can do to get kids more excited and loving school again? That's a great question.
So let's start again with community. I'm going to start there first, because we also know that so go our public schools, and public education goes our country, right? I think that our community needs to be to say what it is that we don't know and don't understand, so that we can learn it and become better. I think how we do school or how it's set up is archaic, right? Who schools were set up for? One, they weren't set up for us, right? Two, when we were let in the door, it was isolating, and the expectations were minimalist at best. And everyone doesn't learn in the same way at the same time and in the same way. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about what can we do to disinterest, we have to look at the things that they are interested in, right? And then how can we use that to leverage to make connections for them beyond just their interest, right? Because there's all kinds of technology now, but what are we truly using the technology for? In service to learning, right? Not just, I'm going to play a game, I'm going to do this, right? And there also needs to be a balance. There needs to be a balance between like apples and oranges or peaches and cream. There needs to be a balance of some of this and some of that, because all of it is necessary. And I would just say this too, as a parent myself, not judging or anything, but we also need to understand that when we have children, they are all of our children, right? They are whoever birthed them and their family, and then they're all our community. And so it's that village piece that's not allowing us to do it, because parents don't want you to say anything to their child to help them because of their own experiences. And then I'm going to be honest with you. I've been called the B word. I've been hit, all the things. And I've had to pause and say, Lord, help me. And I've had to walk away, because whatever they're going through is deeper than me. But at the same time, if you do that in the community, who's somebody who don't care about you and don't love you, we know what's going to happen. That's a given. So when we talk about what it is that we can do to get them interested, we have to rally around them to find out what it is that they think they might need. Where is their voice in it? We can't keep doing stuff to them. We need to do stuff alongside of them and be in front of them, to the left and right of them and in the back of them, helping them to see what they can't see. Because guess what? When I was 11, 12, 13, 14, you couldn't tell me nothing, right? That hasn't changed. But we have to think about who it is we serving, what it is that they need, how we are showing up in it, how they are showing up in it in order to get through it. So I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, to Dr. Hicks and to Brianna, it definitely is ensuring that we hear their voices. But I think sometimes when we say that, it gets conflated to this piece around like whatever they say is what should happen. And I think it's really more than that. It's hearing their voice within parameters. So we understand what the purpose of schooling is for and how schools need, like what are the things that students need to walk away from schools with having. So when we think about standards and we think about their voice, those things have to come into conversation with one another. It can't simply be, I want to play games on my iPad or school day, or it can't just be sit in a class and listen to a lecture all day. But how are we grappling with both the interest and voice of the student as well as the technical pieces of school, the standards. I think another piece that supports some of this is tied to resources and in the village. And so having the village to show up, thinking about ways that we engage our children within the school day or after the school day, so that there is that excitement of being in the school. One thing kind of far removed from the schoolhouse directly is voting. And so when we think about being able to do the things that we hear from our children and we say we want to hear their voices, we also have to recognize that we are confined to particular budget restraints within Wisconsin and within our school districts. And so when our legislature continues to decide not to fund schooling at the level that they should, or public education at the level that they should, some of those things that we're hearing from our students in terms of what they want to see happen in schools or how they would learn best, we might not have the resources to do because we don't have the monetary resources. And so I think it's a multifaceted problem. But I think on the surface level is definitely hearing their voice, is definitely getting our village back involved, and then also doing some of those technical pieces outside of the school walls, talking about voting and so on and so forth.
Again, if you guys got questions, throw them in the chat. I'll read them out and give our guests an opportunity to answer. Since you guys both came from, well, I know Dr. Hicks, you did elementary as a teacher and then middle school as a principal. But since I know both of you guys have run middle schools, what do you guys feel is like some of the missing pieces that we got to get back to? I know we already talked about community, but is there anything internally in the school or in collaboration? What does that look like for when you saw the best coming out?
I reflect a lot on my time as a teacher, first off at the middle school level, and particularly being at Wright Middle School to begin. We were doing something all the time, like it. I mean, and we loved it. Like, and when I say we, I'm talking about the teachers, the staff, the whole team. Our community loved it. Like, it was always something going on, but that happened. The reason that was able to happen, one, we had leadership that saw the value in that. We had team members who saw the value in it. We had parents and community members who saw the value in it. And all of the people from each of those pockets showed up and supported it. So, there were families who were coming in to support whatever it was we were doing after school or during the school day. And so I know you said aside from the village, but I do think that's a huge part, is really that partnership between school and community, in terms of being able to kind of propel us forward and get to those missing things. Yeah, I think aside from the village, I don't know that we have done a great job of hearing the voices of our students, or listening to them. I think we ask them things and we say we're hearing them, but where's the action? And sometimes I think that's a piece that's missing. So yeah.
Shout out to all this James C. Wright love too, because you've got the former principal, you got a former classroom teacher, and then you also got me, who actually broke the ground to build the building. I had that dirt for a very long time, and then my mom threw it away. But that's here nor there. I never thought that I'd have been back in that building, working in it, or knowing somebody that was running it to be able to pass that dirt on to. But that's here nor there. But go ahead, say what you were going to, Dr. Hicks.
In my opinion, the ways that the community can help support teachers and administrators is to show up, right? Don't just show up in anger. Show up in a way that we're all mama bears. We're all mama bears. We want to protect our kids. But show up in a way that says, what is it that I can do to support my child in this place and to support you all, to help you to get my child where they need to go. Because one of the things what I see regularly is I see parents show up, when it's a negative thing. I would also say when schools, I've communicated with school, you can't be just calling parents when it's something that's going wrong. How are you communicating to families ongoing and often, and letting them know what's happening that's well? Because again, as a human being, if all I'm hearing is negative, I don't want to hear from you, right? But on the same token, the school, we're here to serve you all too, right? And it is a partnership, and not just a partnership in name. Come on, be a part of the committees. Say I want to be a part of SBLT. That's the school-based leadership team. Say I want to be on the engagement committee. Say I want to be on PTO or the empowerment group. How can you help when you don't even know where the help is needed? How can you help when you don't know what the help is needed? Not just where, but what's needed. And then when you just don't even know really what's going on. And that's the part that I am really seeing a lot, especially in middle schools. We have families that will show up for anything and whatever. And I also communicate to administrators. We know when scholars are performing or are being highlighted in some way, their parents show up. We know when it's sports related, parents show up. When it's music, parents show up. So guess what? What can I do as a school in those spaces and on those days and in those times to invite families in? And I don't mean just into the building, I mean into the work, right? Because the bottom line is that you, as family members, you give blind trust and faith into our system that we're going to do right by your children. And the reality is I would say 99% of the people want to do that. But there's a great percentage who really don't know how. And so as a system, we also need you to be able to come in and say, well, this is what works with my child in my space. Because I'm going to tell you, my expectations are here. What you can't even see it. They say, oh, Dr. Hicks, You doing too much. You doing too much. Yep, I'm doing too much because I need you to do more. Because if I only do a little bit, you gonna match me, and I need you to surpass me. So I need to show you and help you to understand the expectations. Are you going to understand it all? No. But at the same time, I want the parents to come in. Where are we having some parenting opportunities to learn? We all going through the same stuff with all of our children. Nobody's exempt. But we're not communicating with each other. So how in the community are we bringing those pieces together in order to help schools, in order to help our children, instead of being worried about what Jordans they got, this, that, and the other they doing on TikTok, all the things which might be fun, but are getting in the way of them seeing a trajectory or even creating a vision or opportunities for their life.
All right. I appreciate that. You was preaching there. Kyrie Brooks said, specifically in middle schools, what are your views on out of school discipline, especially with the rise of vaping? How much our school districts paying attention to mental health services?
I'll start. My dissertation actually looks at out of school discipline. And I can tell you that out of school discipline is highly ineffective. Now, I'd be a hypocrite if I sat here and said I never use it. I do, I have, but I also know the literature behind the effect of it, and so I put both of those things in a space. What I think is most important, and for me, before I ever go to a place of out of school discipline, I've tried multiple things. And I think similar to well, and with respect to this question, Kyrie, I think what's most important here is really thinking again about the connection with the family. And so for me, I start with trying to get an understanding, not just looking at the behavior and saying that's the wrong behavior. And so here has to be this consequence, but wanting to understand what's led to this behavior happening, what supports are already in place to for this student as it pertains to this particular behavior. Are the parents aware? And then what is a plan that we can create in partnership with the family to ensure that we're being responsive to the particular behavior? And another piece of it, I think too, is like most times when we tell kids don't do this, that's exactly what they try to go out and do. And so really also ensuring that they're at the table too, to give voice to what makes sense for them and what supports they need to have in place. But I think especially as we think about vaping, if we go right to out of school discipline, you probably imagine the rate of vaping actually increases because oftentimes they're now unsupervised and they still have a vape. And so I think is really thinking about that collaborative approach. Who on your mental health team or student services team, the family, yourself, so on and so forth. How can you all come together to develop that solid plan for the student?
I would just say, even pre-pandemic, there weren't enough mental health services and supports available prior to that. So this isn't a new phenomenon. And we don't have people going into that field either, right? So that's one. Two, when it comes to vaping and any other kind of behaviors, they've all been around since the beginning of time, right? And when we think about, I agree 100% with Larry, and it's about relationships, partnerships, connections, communication, all of those things. And as a school leader, it's also my responsibility to ensure that everyone in our building is safe, right? And I think we have a misunderstanding too around restorative justice. Restorative justice doesn't mean just letting somebody do whatever it is that they want. Because if we go back to indigenous cultures, that's where it comes from. That's not what was done, right? And we as a community they also rallied around that person, and then they invited them back into the space. It wasn't like you get out, and we ain't gonna talk to you. No, right? And so we really have to look at what is the end goal, right? What is the harm that's being done, not just but also to themselves, but also to the larger community. And what are the ways as the community we are going to be together? Because that's a huge piece that's missing for me. Like, how are we going to be in community together and we build that, right? And in communities, there are people who are the leaders who are going to help do the facilitation, and we're all a part of the circle, and no one has more like leverage than somebody else. But the reality is that we do sometimes, because someone has to make a final decision. And if we don't come together to talk about that, I don't mean just talk about it, because we talk about a lot of things, but then there's now action behind it, right? What's the action that we're going to do? Like right now in elementary school, we talk about there is nothing. I would just say this. What we're experiencing right now and who we have as learners and peoples, as well as the adults and the adult teachers, the research on that hasn't even been out yet. It hasn't been done yet. It hasn't been completed yet, right? But what I know, and I'm talking about even myself as an adult, being in COVID, it did something to me. It shifted me. It shifted my brain. It shifted a lot, right? The long-term impact of that, we don't know that research yet, right? But people are trying to do it now. But what I can tell you is that we have to come together as a community. We have to have parents, community members, everybody as a part of the process of saying, how are we going to be together in humanity? Because that hasn't been talked about either. And so even if we're taking small chunks and trying to do it along the way, I'd rather do that than to wait till something horrific happens and then it's too late, right? Because right now we see it all the time. Kids are bringing guns, adults are bringing guns, all of the things. And it's creating trauma for everybody, right? And now everyone's operating in fear. Let's just pause a minute. Let's just slow down. How am I going to invite you in? How am I going to host you? And how is it going to be, reciprocal? I'm going to give you got, like, we've got to flesh that out, because right now, all we are doing are showing up like a dog chasing our tail. And we're not really impacting or getting to where we need to go, because everyone's making it about an individual instead of a collective approach.
Kyrie followed up the question with, how do we make equity work matter to our white colleagues?
I've grappled with that question for a long time, Kyrie, and I don't know that we can actually make the work matter to them. I think there's some mindset work that has to go, that has to happen first for our white colleagues to value equity work. I think what some possible strategies to employ to support that mindset work might be is, as a leader, stepping aside. Sometimes when we're the leader trying to say this is what we're doing, it comes off as directive versus what's best for our institutions. And so when we can rely on the voices of our community, the voices of our students, the voices of our parents to really lift up equity work, I think it lands in a different way. The humanity piece is most central when it comes from someone who is not a supervisor or principal or boss or whatever term you want to use. And so for me, I think that would be the best starting point. And then really thinking about, where are those people who espouse to be allies in the work, who are white colleagues? how are they being tapped on to do some of that work as well?
I agree with Larry about it's really truly mindset shift, right? And the greatest thing for me and in my approach when you talk about practices, it's like leaning in on humanity, right? Really, like these are all of our children, as James Ball would said, and we will profit or pay for whomever they become. And in doing that, it take what I am like unearthing now in the spaces that I am being, that people really don't people what is occurring right now in a lot of ways, people have not been trained for that. They weren't ever given those experiences, which is a disconnect too. And then so how are we as a system also providing those opportunities for people to learn, right? But going back to the basics, how are we showing up for human beings and each other, period, right? I think people want to do the right thing, but our system and the resources aren't there in order for us to be able to do the right work in the right way for it to have impactful long-term effect. And I'm just, people don't know what to do. And I'm not saying the leaders, I'm talking about the teachers, because again, we've all been impacted. And what I've shared with teachers, just don't think about how did the pandemic impact you? How are you also showing up in the work? What are you bringing? Because you're bringing your stuff to the place too, right? And we all have to look at that and deconstruct that. I work with my principals. I'm like, wait, let's not look at, we are part of the district. What are your values? What are you standing on? What are your beliefs? Because if you don't know what that is and what they are, then guess what? You just gonna try to fit yourself into somebody else's box, rather than looking at how do our boxes align and where can we move forward from there. So I'm not it's hard for me to not talk about equity work because I am equity. I would just say, and Larry can agree, we were doing equity work before the district even started talking about equity, because that's who we are. And that's just human work, right? And so I had teachers who were like, oh, because truth of the matter, kids don't respond to what you look like. They respond to how you make them feel, right? And if you make them feel like not good, they're not gonna care about you. And the superficial, oh, I know them. No, you know their name, and then you really don't even know their name. You might know a nickname. How are we getting to know each other? How are we getting connected? That part of humanity is gone. It's going away. And until we can come back to, again, we don't have to throw out everything, but some of the things that are essential need to be there. I just reading an article about how screen time early on is gravely impacting comprehension in reading. But yet and still, we still want to put our kids on the screen during the school day. Like, what? Make it make sense, right? And parents, you have to step back and say, hey, put that phone away. I ask kids all the time, do you think your parent would be okay with me just letting you have a phone in school all day and you doing nothing? I'm calling. Not because I want the kids in trouble. I want you to know what your child is doing and what they are not taking advantage of. Right now, good, bad, or indifferent, education is free. And we're not utilizing it to the best of our ability.
Agreed. I completely agree. I want to respect everybody's time, listeners and you guys guests. So I want to close it with my favorite question. If you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self? Or what would you tell someone young today or just now, like what kind of advice or guidance would you give to them or give yourself, knowing what you've gone through and experienced?
I would just say it's hard for me to say that because everything that I have gone through has created who I am. And I needed to have that as a lesson, good, bad, or indifferent. And so probably what the one thing that I would say is be slow to anger, right? Because when and learn how to regulate your emotions as early as you can, because when you're in those dysregulated states, or you go from 0 to 100 really quickly, you miss a lot of things and a lot of message. So I would want to just slow down a bit.
I think mine is two parts. It will start with first reminding, like, there's a lesson learned in everything, and so being sure to identify what that lesson is, and then that kind of connects to one of my favorite sayings, which is good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is your better and your better is your best. So yeah.
So I definitely super appreciate y'all. I know we could talk about this for many, many, many more hours. But like I said, I want to value everybody's time. So I definitely appreciate you guys coming on. Definitely appreciate all the listeners that tuned in. Hopefully this was informative. And I definitely will see you guys next week if you guys can hang on for a second, but we're getting out of here. Thank you guys.